This is DME TV and you are watching our program DME Dialogue. This is a program wherein we invite distinguished people to speak on varied subjects, subjects particularly which are important for the society and which makes an impact on our lives. So today in this program we have Major General Anil Verma with us, who has a distinguished career in army for 37 years, and after that he decided to do something in the social sector, to do something for a better democracy in the country, and that is how he has joined the organization which we all know as Association for Democratic Reforms, ADR. So Major General Verma, welcome to this program, and we are thankful that you decided to spare some time with us for this interview.
Thank you, Professor Saxena.
So to begin with, you have a long career in army and serving the country. So what prompted you to join completely an unfamiliar area? Normally after retirement the army people join education or varied such sectors, but joining an organization which is working for strengthening democracy, for improvement in the electoral system, that is comparatively unheard of. So how it did happen in fact?
Okay, so I had decided that after retirement I will not take up the normal route which most of the army officers take. That is either to join the corporate life or become defense experts or join the educational thing, because I felt that the current state of the political and electoral system of our country needs a lot of reforms, and I found that Association for Democratic Reforms was doing wonderful work in this field, and there was an opportunity available here. And the question which you have asked me was also asked by the chairman and the trustees who interviewed me as to why do you want to join this thing. So I said, I want to give back to the society now. This is time to give back to the society, and my firm belief is that unless and until our political system and the politicians who are governing us are reformed, things will not improve in the country.
Can you tell us something more about ADR, what kind of work it is into and which areas it's trying to penetrate into?
Okay. So ADR was basically started in 1999 by a group of professors, around 11 of them, from the Indian Institute of Management at Ahmedabad, because they thought that at that point of time there are too many criminal elements entering the politics, and there is too much of money power there in the electoral system. So they filed a petition in the Delhi High Court that a common man doesn't know anything about the person who is contesting elections in our country, and it's a mandatory thing as per the constitution. We should know whom are we voting for. Yeah. So that is how the process started, and they won this PIL, and then it was contested by all the 22 political parties and the government of that time. So it went to Supreme Court. So basically after a battle of 3-4 years, finally in 2003 the Supreme Court overturned the ordinance which the government was trying to bring in, and said that this is a constitutional right of a common man to know whom they are voting for, to know details, and that was the beginning of ADR.
But one instant question that comes to my mind, why this thought came so late in India? We became a democracy, a republic in 1950, and we have such a good constitution, very comprehensive constitution covering so many areas, and everything has been very meticulously laid down. And then if we talk about the legislations relating to elections, we have Representation of People's Act. All these things are there, the constitutional and the legal things. But why this kind of aspect did not come to the mind of the constitution makers that, for democracy, this transparency has to be there and people have to be informed. This is a very basic thing. So why the country took so long to think on this issue?
Okay, if I may quote two people here. One is that Mr. C. Rajagopalachari, when he was in prison in 1922, he used to write, and then that was later published as a book called Prison Diaries. in that 1922, please mark the date, he had written that when India gets independence, whenever, I shudder to think what will happen if the politicians are involved in the type of corruption and money making and criminality as I foresee. So please see that in 1922 that wise old man had seen what is our mentality and what type of people we are. The second thing which I want to quote is Dr. Rajendra Prasad ji. During the Constituent Assembly debates in 1949, he stated, you spoke about the constitution.
Yeah.
So he says constitution is a lifeless thing. By its own, on its own it cannot do anything. It has to be run by people, and I hope that once India gets independent, the type of people with noble character will man the governments, and then only the constitution can function. So now you can understand that this thinking, this doubt was existing in the minds of even our forebearers of the democratic system. So there are a lot of problems areas, and as to how this came to such a pass is the fact that because of the winnability thing and all political parties want to come to power, they use all means.
So this will remain there, whatever work you are doing or other organizations are doing in this area, and whatever electoral reforms happen, something has happened, something more might be happening legally or otherwise. But if our mentality is such that winnability is the final thing, then whatever reforms are happening, it will make no impact.
So that is why there are a number of measures which are required to be taken. So one of them is advocacy. We need to make people aware. We need to talk to the young people, tell them that this is your future at stake. The current situation in which we are in, if you don't participate as an active citizen, like there is a saying, in Hindi we call it, Praja hi Prabhu hai. There is a saying by a famous judiciary, this thing also, Felix Frankfurter, who has also said the same thing. That the citizen is the most important person in a democracy. So unless and until we realize that and we take active participatory measures in the electoral and political system of our country, and we make efforts to improve it, and then is the issue of the mindset change, the societal things which we have to change the society, the way people think. We have to make sure that they go above the issues of caste, creed, religion and all that on the basis of which they vote.
This is something which has to be taken up at multiple platforms. I mean, the society cannot be reformed overnight. So a lot of legal measures need to be taken. So legislature, the parliament is important. The executive has to function that way. And then judiciary is also important in the whole process. And then obviously the civil society. And all these institutions have to work in tandem. Otherwise, no reform is possible.
Absolutely. If I may take all these pillars of the democracy one by one. All the electoral reforms which have taken so far, I would say 85 to 90% of them have been through the judicial route. The executive has done very little to, they call it reforms, but they are actually going the other way. When they talk about transparency, they are actually increasing opacity. So the executive is the one which has to be, pressure has to be built on them. Otherwise, on their own, they would like the status quo to be maintained. The third thing is the administration or the bureaucrats, I would say. They have a very important role to play because they are the ones who execute the policies of the governments. So if corruption is reduced and they are able to deliver good governance to the common man, the system would have been achieved. And coming to the fourth pillar of democracy is the media. Media plays an extremely important role in making the people aware of what actually is going on. And there are a lot of lacunas in that also, as we are aware, paid news and fake news and all that sort of
But
thing.
then what about the role of the Election Commission? Because that's the body which conducts the election. But over the years, we have been finding there is a question mark on the role of the election commissioners and the way the Election Commission functions. They are many times, obviously, they are partisan and they are not taking the decisions wherever they are expected to take the decisions. So how do you look at and how do you analyze the role of the Election Commission?
So, Election Commission, let me tell you, is considered, and by no less a person than Hillary Clinton. She made a statement that this is a gold standard, Indian Election Commission. Firstly, to conduct elections at such a vast scale, where you know how diverse our country is, what type of geographical areas the elections are conducted, and various other things, and the population in itself. The conduct of the election as such is a huge task which they have been doing admirably.
Yeah, exactly.
And over the years, even the election commissioners who have been functioning with total I would say non-partisan manner, in a non-partisan manner. It is just the last couple of years that there has been a slight dilution in the functioning of this thing, and that is also related, I would say, primarily to the campaign season when the elections are on, wherein against certain powerful people you do not take the required action which you should take, whereas for others you take action. But I personally feel that the Election Commission needs to take much stronger methods. Now, another lacuna which we have here is that Election Commission is not empowered enough. Exactly. It needs to be empowered more. Like I gave the example that they can register a party, but they have no powers to deregister a party.
So do you feel some legal measures need to be taken, like some amendment can be brought in the Representation of People's Act?
Absolutely, but that can happen only by legislation.
Because this happens in the case of paid news also. If the complaints are made to the Election Commission, they investigate. I mean, the speed of the investigation is too less. They do not have that instrument or the mechanism wherein that investigation is conducted. And even if some truth is found in that, they are simply toothless. They cannot take any action against any political party or against any candidate. So this situation has to be changed. Are you doing something at the level of ADR in this regard?
See, we are giving recommendations in all our this thing. Like for example, in 2017, we were called by the Standing Committee of the Parliament to give suggestions for electoral reforms. This was one of the suggestions which we gave. We said that the Election Commission needs to be empowered. We need to make sure that the election commissioners are not given remunerative posts after they retire. We have seen cases of becoming
wherein after that the people join politics.
Politics or otherwise some other important appointments are there where they are given that. So this type of suggestions we have been giving to the government as well as to the Election Commission.
And what do you think about this 3-member, because during the session's time and after this one-man body was turned into a 3-member body, but it's still in the present Election Commission we find that there are differences of opinion, and even if one Election Commissioner differs on something, then nothing is happening even after that. So do you feel a consensus has to be there among all the 3 members, or how the decision making should happen in Election Commission?
See, I feel the 3-member Election Commission is a good thing, and by and large the decisions which they take are pretty good, and they take them pretty fast, especially when elections are on. At times they take it by just speaking to each other on telephone or whatever the problem is. So but our suggestion in the Standing Committee report was also that there has to be a special body to elect the election commissioners. It should not be the sole prerogative of the government. There has to be a member of the opposition, there should be some eminent people, or maybe some judges or some.
I mean, on the similar lines, the CIC is appointed or CVC is appointed. But then if you look into the electoral reforms which have happened during the last particularly 20 years, that's the time when this whole reforms is started. Can you tell us what are the 2 or 3 most important reforms that have happened in India as far as the electoral system is concerned?
See, since our focus has been only on criminality and money power, basically Dhanbal or Bahubal. So, I can tell you about the areas where ADR has been involved and some other like-minded NGOs who have filed PILs and all. So, one is of course our ADR judgment of 2003, which is called a landmark judgment, because of which the affidavits came into being. Earlier there were no affidavits. Now at least you know the complete bag, and there has been over the time improvements made in this affidavit. More and more information has been fed into it. The second most important thing I think is what is called the Lily Thomas judgment.
Right.
Okay, that was 2013, in which it was ruled by the Supreme Court. See, earlier what used to happen, the politician may have hundreds of cases running against, they would carry on in the courts, he would contest elections, he would win, he would complete his 5-year term, he would again contest, and the court cases would go on. So, in this case what had happened, that the court ruled that if a politician, even if he or she is a sitting MP or MLA and he is convicted of an offence by the court in which the punishment is 2 years or more, he will be immediately disqualified. So, this is how Lalu Prasad and some other people, Jayalalitha, God bless her soul, and all were involved. That is a very important this thing which happened.
No, but in conviction case, obviously a lot of things which have happened that we can see, but in case there is no conviction, we know the kind of legal and judicial system we have in our country. If there are certain charges, certain cases happening in certain courts against a politician and that goes on for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, then nothing can happen in that case.
So, there was another PIL filed in which this has also been one of the ADR's demand, that there should be fast track courts and they should be specially trying the cases of the politicians.
Yeah, when this government in 2014 came, they also talked about this. The government said that there is a speedy trial in all such cases where politicians or MPs, MLAs are involved. But even after 5-6 years, I believe nothing has happened in this area.
12 courts were set up all over the country, and they were given jurisdiction that you will look after A state, B. So, smaller states were clubbed together, and the bigger states they all had one separate special case. But the point is that how many such cases have been tried by them, what has been the result, what has been the conviction rate, what have been the where the people have been let free, though data is not available. We file RTI applications and try to check, but it is very difficult. So, I do not know the efficacy with which these special courts are functioning.
This proves the point that unless judicial reforms are taken up, electoral reforms will not be possible then.
Yeah, towards I would say they are linked.
Yeah. And what do you feel? What more is in the store? What kind of reforms you foresee that should be taken up to completely overhaul the political system in India?
See, like I said earlier, we are against criminality and money power. So, one important thing as far as the criminality goes is, and this thing is going on, some PIL in the Supreme Court as of now also, I think today also something was to be done, is that people with criminal cases which have punishment of 2 years to 5 years or something should not be allowed to contest elections, where cognizance has been taken of the offence and some magistrate or some judge or somebody has taken judicial cognizance of that. Now, that has been a repeated demand again and again, and in the last hearing a couple of months back, the Supreme Court told the petitioner and the Election Commission that please come back with suggestion as to what can be done. There is no dearth of suggestions. There are so many committees and law commission reports which are saying the same thing.
The only thing which is required, will for implementation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Second thing is as far as the money power. We have also filed a PIL in this thing. We have said that as you have, the government has set a limit on the election expenditure by a candidate, 70 lakhs for the parliament and 28 lakhs for the states. Similarly, there should be a ceiling on the political parties also. Right now, there is no ceiling on the amount of money they can receive or spend. That is leading to all these problems.
And how do you define the role of a voter in a democratic or electoral system? Because there's a lot of emphasis by the election commission also, by media houses also, appealing the people to go out and cast the vote. So whether the right and the role of a voter is confined to casting the vote only, or there is something more to it?
See, this is related to the responsibilities of a citizen. Generally, what we see is democracy means elections, person votes, and then you forget about it for 5 years. But that is not what is democracy. Exactly. Democracy is continued interaction and awareness of the citizen. Because unless and until the citizen is monitoring what the executive is doing and what are the various other functionaries of the government doing, then things will go from bad to worse.
So don't you feel there is an apathy among the voters despite, recent Delhi elections, despite all that campaigning which was done by the election commission, the turnout was very low and it was less as compared to the last assembly election. So why there is no impact is seen despite all these efforts asking the people to vote?
See, the election commission makes a lot of efforts to woo the voters, try to get them to come out and vote, and they even have a sweep program, SVEP program, in which they now are also going to schools and colleges and educating the children also as to what the importance of going out and voting is. But yes, you are right in the sense that in the urban areas, the voting percentage tends to be a little low if you compare it to the rural area, because people just are apathetic or they are cynical. Yeah. Why should we go out and vote? What difference does it make? So this is the mindsets which we need to change, like I spoke about it earlier.
We also have the system of nota, and for many elections it's being implemented. But do you feel that nota has made any impact, or it will make any impact in reforming the electoral system?
See, in the judgment given by the Supreme Court in 2013, just before the last general elections, was that this will create some pressure on the political parties and make them feel better candidates. But unfortunately, that has not happened. Though the percentage of vota in certain states is increasing with every election. It is increasing, more and more people are showing. But it is just showing their dissent to the type of candidates which have been fielded by the political parties. But our recommendation is that it should now go to the next step. There should be a law passed in which, if in a constituencies the nota votes are more than which any candidate has secured, then those candidates should be barred from contesting elections for 5 years, and a fresh set of faces should come up and election should be held.
Right. Do you feel making political parties a legal entity will work? Because nowadays we do not have any specific law dealing with political parties, and not much has been said in the constitution also. No particular law is there dealing with this kind of problem. So do you feel any such law can be made wherein political parties can be regulated and they are bound to abide by the laws of the country?
Absolutely. That is one of our recommendations. As a matter of fact, I think in 2010, ADR had requested retired Chief Justice Venkat Chalia and some other judges. They produced a draft bill in which the framework for act for the regulating the political parties was made. But as it always happens, it is not given any due importance, and because basically the political parties themselves do not wish to be controlled by any law.
And talking about the rights of the voters, as I earlier asked a question, do you feel that the voters should be given the right to recall their representatives if they are not working?
So this right to recall has also been discussed and debated quite in detail, but what my experience is that the election commission as well as the law experts, they are not in favor of right to recall, because it has got too many administrative problems.
Right.
You will be constantly in a state of this thing, you know, elections. Second, how much time do you give a chap to judge whether he is functioning well or not? When do you decide to recall? It has too many problems for a country like India.
But as a voter, I feel that I have always been casting the vote, but I have never been enjoying the right to contest the election because I don't have money in my pocket. So don't you feel that this right should also be thought of to be given to a voter, which we can call as to right to contest election?
See that anybody, I mean nobody is stopping you if you
No, but that there is a mismatch as far as the poverty line is concerned or per capita income is concerned, and the expenditure that has been prescribed by the election commission. If I don't have 50 lakh, the election commission has said that 50 lakhs can be spent, for instance, but I don't have 50 lakhs in my pocket. This means I am being denied of contesting the election.
see that it can be debated. We can work out some system wherein the political parties should fund such candidates who are poor or who don't have enough money. Some such system will have to be worked out, and especially I would say for women candidates, because they are the ones who are, you know, they don't have the wherewithal and the money and the backing to contest elections.
And then talking about the reservation for women, as you talked about women, that has not happened despite so many debates, so many attempts being made on this issue.
It is very important. It needs to be done at the earliest.
I mean, this is such a topic, electoral reforms, lot of things are being done. ADR is working on so many things, as you gave all that information to our viewers. Many things need to be done, which I believe that someday more reforms will happen and our electoral system, political system will improve and it will deliver to the people and we will be a better democracy in the time to come. Thanks, Major General Verma, to be with us and talking to us on such a vital issue. So that was Major General Verma, who was talking to us on electoral reforms. You are watching our program DME Dialogue. Keep watching DME TV.